You hear those guitars, you hear those horns, you know what time it is. It's time to play some Toss. Welcome everyone to Toss, episode 33, Tristan on Sports Show. It is in fact your main man, T Squared. Tristan Thomas here with you. Thank you so much for joining us. So happy to be here with you. Man, there has been so much change going on here in the state of Wisconsin. That's why we got to jump right into state of the state. You know how we do it here on Toss. Let's jump into the state of affairs with the Milwaukee Bucks. Man, let me tell you, let me set the scenario for you. It was a Monday afternoon. I was done with my day. Had a very early day, very productive, was done with it, spending some time with my family. And I'm sitting there and my phone just explodes. Not like a Samsung Galaxy or anything like that, but my phone just literally explodes with notifications and text messages and DMs and emails and everything else. And then my Apple Watch just starts just buzzing, going off with notifications on just about every app and a bunch of DMs and all these notifications. Everything was just blowing up technology wise. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? I mean, what is going on? So I go to pick up my phone and I open it to all these notifications. And the very first one I see states the Milwaukee Bucks have relieved Jason Kidd of his duties. And I can honestly say I was genuinely shocked. I was shocked. And not at the fact that Jason Kidd had been fired. I'm on the record as saying year 4 was going to be a judgment year on Jason Kidd. If he did not improve this team, if he did not take that next step with this team, getting them to play more consistently, learning how to build a consistent rotation so you get better, more consistent performances out of guys. He was going to be gone at the end of the season, but in fact, he was not gone at the end of the season. He was gone midway through the season. That's what I was shocked about. Because I'm also on the record as saying, hey, I don't think the Bucks owners are going to have the grapefruits to let go of Jason Kidd midseason. You keep him all year long. You see if you get into the playoffs, see what you can do about him, and then you let him go at the end. I felt that would have been a much smoother transition than letting him go midseason and getting the same old from Joe Prunty, who has taken over for Jason Kidd when he was, out for various reasons. And we'll get to Joe Prunty in a minute. I was genuinely surprised they let him go midseason. This isn't a move you normally see from the Milwaukee Bucks. It's just not. It just isn't. It was shocking. It was just as shocking as when the Milwaukee Brewers let go of Ned Yost with just a few games remaining in the season and they were hanging on to a playoff spot. That I viewed as a panic firing. That was a panic firing. It was shocking. And this Jason Kidd firing at the time that it happened, for me, was shocking and surprising. So I'm going through all the notes and I'm going through all the notifications and I'm reading everyone's takes and then I put my takes out there. Does it change the fact that Jason Kidd is now gone? So a lot of people got their wish and my prediction did come true. Year 4 was, in fact, the judgment year. You could see it. The writing was on the wall. And the various people I spoke to, some of them spoke to Giannis being out for those 2 games when they headed off to Philadelphia and got beat there. The fact that he was leading the NBA minutes and Jason Kidd's just running him into the ground. Like, yeah, he's 23 years old. When you're at 23, you're able to recuperate a little bit faster than those of us who are not 23 years old anymore. But you still shouldn't be running this kid into the ground, especially when it's games that you're not even going to get back into because of your horrible defensive and offensive systems. But that's a different story for a different day. A lot of people said that's when it really started to percolate, and that's when they decided to give Jon Horst that power, GM Jon Horst, that power to go and fire Jason Kidd. A lot of people spoke about a dust-up that happened in practice between Kidd and Jon Horst and a player, or players, plural. So there's many different stories about how this came to be, but that does not change the fact of what I sat here and reported last offseason, even when he was close to getting fired last offseason, because I spoke to those folks about that. Just 2 weeks before his firing, I spoke to that one person, and they told me, hey, remember those votes that Jason Kidd had to keep him around amongst Bucks ownership? Well, some of those votes are starting to flip. Fast forward 2 weeks, and he's gone. He's gone. So out with the kid, who I don't believe is going to see another head coaching job anytime soon, if at all, in the NBA. Maybe he seasons his game, goes down to college, learns how to win down there, learns how to coach down there. Then maybe he'll get another opportunity. But I don't foresee him getting another opportunity as a head coach in the NBA anytime soon. I think someone may be foolish enough to give him a front office job, which we all think that's what he was pining for to begin with. But I don't foresee him as a head coach in the National Basketball Association anytime soon. I just don't. He wasn't that great in Brooklyn. He was awful in Milwaukee, way under 500. Through 291 games, he was not over 500. He was well under it. And it wasn't getting any better. So he had to go, and Bucks management, Bucks ownership felt the same way. So out with Jason Kidd, insert Joe Prunty, who's essentially the offensive coordinator on the squad, as the interim head coach for the remainder of the season, and he's auditioning for the permanent position. And look, if Prunty does well the rest of the way, and they're 7-1 currently under Prunty, that includes a win last night against the New York Knicks, where they put the hammer down on those guys. And we'll get to that in a second. But if he does well the rest of the season, let's say they get a high seed. They're currently a half game back of the Central Division lead. Cavaliers are trouble. And we'll talk more about those guys in the tall sweep. Those guys are just broken in shambles right now. But they're a half game back of those guys for first place in the Central Division in the Eastern Conference. They're a half game back of the 3 seed currently. They sit at the 5 seed right now behind Washington, who's in the 4, and Cleveland, who's at the 3. That could easily flip-flop within the next couple of days. But let's say they get a 4 seed or quite possibly a 3 seed, because it's there for them. They've got a tough stretch after the All-Star break, but it's there for them to take. John Wall's out for a while with the Wizards. And even though the Wizards have been playing well and they've got some trouble on their team by themselves, a lot of talk about guys not liking John Wall and this, that, and the other. But they've been playing well without him. But I think the Bucks are better than those guys. Cleveland is the team that I picked. And again, we'll talk about them in the tall sweep to come out the East, but they're not playing like that. They might slide. That 3 spot is there for the Bucks to take. All you have to do is go out there and be consistent, play your game, and win. And you're capable of doing that. They could quite possibly get that 3 seed. So if Joe Prunty gets a 3 seed with this team and they win a playoff matchup, they win a playoff series and make it to the second round, he's going to be considered heavily for this position. And I know there's a bit of caution with that. You know, Joe Prunty is a guy who came from the Spurs system, learned under Popovich. If you want to coach from a system, that's the system that you want. Popovich is the greatest coach of this particular generation. I don't think there's any question about that. If you want to coach, get a coach from that tree. And that's what Joe Prunty is. Brian Anderson, announcer for the Brewers and Turner Network, came out and said, hey, you know, back from his San Antonio days, Joe Prunty is a good one. All he needs is an opportunity and a place to land. And the Bucks may have a great one in them. And you can see the adjustments that he's made defensively for this team have made a difference. They're no longer blitzing the ball carrier, the ball handler, like crazy, leaving themselves open for 3. They're now shading. And there's times where they still leave open 3-point shooters. And that's still a bit of a concern. But they're learning. They've gotten a lot better at not doing that so much. Still have a ways to go, but it's not as nearly as bad as it was with Jason Kidd at the helm. He's shortened this rotation up. Now you kind of know what guys' roles are going to be and who's going to play, who's coming up off that bench in a game with meaningful minutes. He's shown that he's not afraid to play Jason Terry. He's shown he's not afraid to play the rookie Sterling Brown. He's not afraid to play Delly. He's not afraid to play Thon. He's really shored that rotation up. And now you insert Jabari Parker, who came back and line has looked fantastic in 3 games worth of action. Stretches minutes out every single game. It was about 14-48 the first game. It was a little over 17 the second game. It was a little over 20 minutes in the last night's game against the Knicks. And he's been in double-digit points with a really good shooting percentage in every single game. Showed tremendous bounce on his jump. His mid-range game is good. He's stretching it out to the 3-point line. That shot is looking pretty good, even though he's taken about 2 3-pointers. He's made 1, but that shot's looking pretty smooth. And you got to remember, he shot 36% from 3 when he went down with injury last year. So he was beginning to stretch that out. And he's a respectable 3-point shooter. But the changes that Joe Prunty has made, the adjustments that he's made, the consistency that he has brought to this team, and the coaching, which cannot be understated, the coaching that he brings on game day, not just practice like Jason Kidd, but on game day, fighting for his guys to get some calls on fouls, actually having a clipboard in his hand and being fired up and engaged with his team, drawing up plays. This is all a complete 180 from Jason Kidd. It's the complete 180 these guys needed. It's the consistency these guys needed. So you think about all of that. You put all that into that package. And if he gets a 3 seed or 4 seed, and if he wins a first round playoff series, gets the Bucks to the second round, Joe Prunty is going to be considered as heavily as any other candidate they could bring in here. Now, the point I was trying to make before I went on that little tangent is there's a little bit of weariness about that. You bring in somebody that is really an unknown. And let's be clear, Prunty, he's been around for a long time, but he still is a relative unknown. He really hasn't had that opportunity to truly be a head coach and have his own program. Or do you go get a big name retread head coach? This is a really important crossroads for the Milwaukee Bucks that they have to get right. You want to get your coaching decisions right, period. But this is probably the most significant, most important coaching decision you're going to make in this franchise's last 30 seasons. Because you have a team, albeit they do have holes, but they're still going out there competing and winning and have a tremendous amount of potential. And they can realize that potential. And it's going to take a coach to bring that out of them. But you're at the point where you're able to be a force in the Eastern Conference and quite possibly get to a finals. And I know that's the next step. You want to win playoff series first, but I'm saying you look at this talent and the direction that they're trending. They have the opportunity to do that sooner rather than later. So you need to get a head coach that's going to get them there. Continue to bring that stability, that continuity. Is Joe Prunty that guy? I don't know. But 7-1, regardless of a soft schedule, this is the same competition that Jason Kidd has coached against and lost to. Jason Kidd's teams would have played to the level of their competition. And it would have been either a close win, which it shouldn't be, against an inferior team, or a loss, much like those 2 L's that he took within 10 days on his home floor against the Bulls, who have, 18, 19 wins to their record right now? I mean, I don't want to hear that, the competition has been soft. So what? So what? They have a soft schedule. They're still NBA players, and this is still the same exact competition. Jason Kidd will either have this team playing to the level of or losing to. We've seen it for years. You have to give Joe Prunty some credit for what he's done, the adjustments he's made, the continuity he's brought, the consistency he's brought. He's as much of a candidate as anyone. So it's all there for the Bucks. It's all there for the Bucks. They have an opportunity to do some really good things this season. But it just really depends on, hey, are they really going to take advantage of the position that they're in? I know you got a tough stretch of games. Again, they got a tough stretch out of the All-Star break. You got to face Toronto, I believe, off bat right after the All-Star break. And that team's been a bugaboo for you for years. You've gone head up with those guys in the playoffs, have not been able to overcome them. So you've got a tough stretch coming up, but I like the direction they're trending. I like the direction they're trending. Joe Prunty has these guys playing fantastic basketball. They're still a work in progress. There's still some things they could do better, especially defensively. Offensively, I like what they're doing. They're sharing the basketball. They're fast breaking. There's more consistency with the rotations, even throughout the injuries. Malcolm Brogdon is gone for a good while now. Now Matthew Dellavedova is gone for a good while now. Giannis has been in and out of the lineup with ankle injuries. He's nursing one right now as we speak. Bledsoe's been in and out, ankle injury, wrist injury. But, he's fighting through it. He's playing. But I like the direction they're headed. I like the direction they're trending in. And it all stems from getting rid of the very thing that was holding this team back, which was Jason Kidd. Period. 7-1 under Joe Prunty. Numbers and tape don't lie. Continuing on, toss and the state of the state. Let's talk Green Bay Packers football now. The football season is over with, and we'll get to that in the toss sweep. Packers season, again, has been over with. We got to go back and talk a little bit about the additions to their coaching staff. They get rid of Alex Van Pelt. We spoke about that the last time we were here on Toss. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers was not happy about that. People were making a big story out of it. But here's the bottom line. The front office has the ability and the power to hire and fire whoever they want. They do not owe an explanation to the players for getting rid of a coach. You may have a connection with that coach, but that does not mean you are owed an explanation as to why the organization decided to go in a different direction. And actually, they didn't even let go of him. They just didn't re-sign him to a new contract. All that stems from their inability to prepare Brett Hundley to play competent NFL football. They were shut out twice while he was under center. It's been a long time since the Green Bay Packers have been shut out. And you're talking about two Hall of Fame quarterbacks back to back that go out there and score points. It has been a long time since those guys have been shut out. So I believe that was the reason why they decided not to re-sign Alex Van Pelt to a contract. And I believe it was a huge shock to Aaron Rodgers. He's a guy that he formed great chemistry with. But at the same time, he has a job outside of you. It's not just up to him to get just you prepared. There's other quarterbacks on the roster that have to get prepared in the likely event that you go down, which is exactly what happened. They have to prepare those other guys, and if they can't do that, preparing you is not enough to save their job, especially when you're not going to be there healthy. So that was one big reason why, and I just wanted to get that out there. But let's talk about their coordinators, which is really important. Joe Philbin returns as the offensive coordinator. And he and Mike McCarthy, even though Mike McCarthy calls the plays, he and Joe Philbin's stint here, he did give some of those play calling duties to Philbin. It wasn't every single play, but he did allow him to call some plays. And when you have that type of great chemistry between the head coach and the coordinator, and the head coach has a message and the coordinator knows that message already, he can convey it a little bit better to the offensive staff. And you have a much, much better chemistry, which equals a much better offense. And this offense had really struggled without him for the most part. You go back and look at the numbers. The offensive coordinator this past season, I believe last season, was Edgar Bennett. And this is a guy who had never done the job before. It's never been an OC anywhere. So when you're an OC and you really can't, and that's not to say he has no knowledge to offer Mike McCarthy or I know ideas to bounce off of Mike McCarthy so they can get in sync and kind of be able to convey the message a little bit better. That's not what I'm saying. But although you can tell there's a bit of a communication problem in communicating duties and other things to the offensive staff, because that's why the offense has struggled at times. But you need a guy with experience that has done the job to be able to bounce it off of there. Hey, Joe Philbin was a head coach in this league. Wasn't completely terrible with the Dolphins, but didn't have the most success. But you could see that they were better under his leadership, coming off of what they had come off of. But you need a guy that you are in sync with, you have a connection with. And I believe that's what McCarthy and Philbin have. And that allows for much easier, much simpler communication amongst those two and much better conveyment to the players. He's able to convey Mike McCarthy's message much, much better to the players of what they expect, why they're doing what they're doing, and just to go out there and do it. So I thought that was a really great move. Another good move that I did not expect to happen because this guy was out of football last season. They introduced their new defensive coordinator, Mike Pettine. Now, the whole time, you guys know I've been on the Vic Fangio train, and, I would have loved to have him, but he decided to go back to the Bears. And I think, quite frankly, the Packers organization really wanted to get away from the Dom Capers coaching tree. And that's really what Vic Fangio came from, was really that Dom Capers type way of thinking. Now they go with the blitzing, aggressive, but disciplined attitude from the Rex Ryan coaching tree and Mike Pettine. And every single year, Mike Pettine has been a defensive coordinator in the National Football League. Those defenses have been top 10. Every year, Mike Pettine has been a defensive coordinator in the National Football League. Those defensives have been top 10. Mike Daniels is already on the record of saying, hey, I like him. He's a nasty guy. He's got an attitude. He's mad, and we need that. And they do. This defense has been softer than drugstore cotton for I don't know how long now. They can't stop anybody on third down. They can't generate a pass rush. We all know how torched that secondary gets. It's time for an attitude change, and that really needs to trickle down into those guys. And I think Mike Pettine is the guy that's going to be able to do that, because he's not going to be afraid to get in these players' faces. He's not going to be afraid to lay down the expectations and discipline when you don't meet those expectations, and coach when you don't meet those expectations. And it seems like that's what was lacking with Dom Capers as defensive coordinator over these past few seasons. And it's twofold. I mean, it's his message no longer really truthfully being heard amongst that locker room. But it's also on, at the time, Ted Thompson, who was the GM at the time, his drafting and his inability to really get players that fit in this system. They get a bunch of guys and try to throw them in a different position, and not everyone's able to do that. There are some guys who are good at one certain thing, and you need to get them so they can go and be good at that one certain thing. Not everybody's going to be able to play 2 and 3 different positions. Not everybody's going to be able to be moved around the field. Some people just don't have that type of ability. Some people just don't have that type of mind to be able to wrap their head around that and go deeper into the defensive playbook and be able to be effective in that type of role. That's just not everybody's MO. Some guys can do it. Guys like Charles Woodson, a guy like Clay Matthews, those guys like that can do it. They've shown you they can do it. But you don't have a bunch of those guys on this team. You don't have a bunch of those guys in the NFL. Those are special players. So it's really twofold. But I feel that there was an attitude change that was needed. They needed to be hungry, mad, nasty. They need to get after the quarterback, knock him on his ass. They need to knock running backs 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. They need to stop the football in the pass game. This is all stuff that they weren't doing under Dom Capers. And plus, I just feel it was time for a brand new scheme. It was time for a brand new mind, a brand new approach, a brand new way of doing things, a brand new scheme, a brand new voice, all that. It was just time to overhaul it all. And that's exactly what they did. I like this hire of Mike Pettine. I really do. I just did not think he would be available, or he would make himself available because again, he was out of football last season. Out of football, made himself available, and now he's the Packers defensive coordinator. I'm really excited to see what they're going to be able to do, himself and his defensive staff, with this team, especially with some young guys coming back, especially Kevin King, big corner. I think that guy's got a bright future. Josh Jones, safety. I mean, that guy's got a bright future. If these guys can stay healthy, they could be really great pieces to this defense moving forward. But 2 really good coordinator hires that are really going to change this team. Man, you just wish the new season started right now, but it doesn't. We got 212 days before the regular season begins in 2018, and I'm missing football already. But at least we got the NBA, and It's just a few days before pitchers and catchers report. That's right. We talking MLB baseball. We got to get to the Brewers. The Brewers have been dormant because baseball season has been over for a few months, but they're about to get ramped back up again. As I said, we're a few days away from pitchers and catchers reporting. But the Brewers have had quite the offseason so far. Let's recap a little bit. Last season, they went 86-76. Shocking. Nobody saw this. Year 2 of a complete rebuild from the minor leagues to the major leagues to the front office. Complete overhaul with David Stearns at the helm. Missed the second wild card by 1 game. This is after they were in first place for a good chunk of the season. So the Brewers were ahead of the curve with their rebuilding process. Absolutely ahead of the curve with that rebuilding process. Nobody saw an 86-win season. Nobody saw them being in first place for a majority of the time before the Cubs decided to turn it on and overtake the division. Nobody saw the Brewers being at this point in their rebuild in year 2. No one saw that. Not even me. I was just hoping for gradual improvement. I didn't see this happening. But it did. And I'm glad it did. Because them getting themselves into this situation made David Stearns take a good long look at the roster, a good long look at the minor league system, a good long look at the rest of the league, and really take stock of where the Brewers were in terms of all of that. And then he decided to go and make some moves that make you believe that they believe they can win it all. Now, I don't want anybody coming back to me in my DMs at the 20double on Twitter saying, oh, you said the Brewers are going to win it all. You crazy. I didn't say they were going to win it all. I just said they made some moves that make you believe that they believe they could win it all. Brewers traded prospects, most notably Lewis Brinson, to bring in Christian Yelich from the Miami Marlins. Guy can hit for average. He's got a little bit of pop in his bat. He gives you A+ defense in that outfield. Huge move. Did not see that coming. And to top it all off, about the same day, they signed a 5-year, $80 million deal with Lorenzo Cain, who was a Brewer at one time, went to the Royals, won a World Series, and is now back where it all began in Milwaukee. Again, A+ defense in that outfield. He can hit for average. He's got a little bit of pop in his bat. These are moves that make you believe the Brewers are ahead of schedule with that rebuild. These are moves that make you believe the Brewers feel that, hey, we're this close. We're this close. I think the one move that would put them over the top and into absolute contention to where it's not even a doubt in anyone's minds that they are actual contenders will be a starting pitcher. And for a while, they were in discussions with Yu Darvish. Figure that out. Who would have thought that Yu Darvish would be speaking to the Brewers seriously? Now that ship has sailed. He's obviously waiting on the Rangers or the Dodgers. He would prefer to either go back to the Rangers or stay with the Dodgers. We all know that. And this free agency market has been extremely slow. They were in discussions with Jake Arrieta, former Cubs pitcher. That would be a huge get as well. Innings eater, quality starts. That's what you need, especially with Jimmy Nelson being out for a good chunk of the year with shoulder surgery. And even though the report said he's far ahead of schedule with his rehabilitation, but it's a shoulder, you need to take that time to get it right. So he's going to be gone a good chunk of the season. I mean, that's a huge blow. So if you could get a number one to anchor the staff and you bring in guys like Chase Anderson and Zach Davies, I mean, you got a shot. You have a legitimate shot at doing something really special. I'm impressed with David Stearns. I'm impressed with the buttons that he's been able to press since he's gotten here. He's been very smart with his moves. And a lot of people are really just kind of bent out of shape with the 5 years and $80 million they gave Lorenzo Cain. But you got to think about the math. Ryan Braun's contract is going to end up coming off the books the older that Cain gets. So it kind of lessens the blow of money that's really tied up. So, I mean, there's a lot of nuances and intricacies that go into it that David Stearns sits down and he maps out. And I think he's done a fantastic job. I have no problem with that contract. quite honestly. But look at the totality of the moves that he's made. He's completely rebuilt that minor league system, which is now regarded as one of the best in all of the majors. He's completely rebuilt the major league roster, and he's really reformed the attitude in that front office. He's really bringing a winning attitude, but a smart winning attitude to this ball club. And I'm all for it. Hey, look, in Stearns we trust. He's pressed all the right buttons. Everything has worked, and it's worked according to plan. How can you be mad about that? I'm not going to be mad about that. So keep on keeping on, David Stearns. And hey, I'm looking forward to this baseball season. I really am. 86 wins last year. Nobody saw that. But now you got expectations on you with these moves that you made. Even if you don't go out and get a starting pitcher, I still think they'll be a very good ball club. That defense has been significantly upgraded with these moves. They've had a chance to really do something special. So that's the state of the state. Bucks are 7-1 under Joe Prunty, doing some big things. A half game out of the third spot in the Eastern Conference playoffs. They've got a chance to do something special. The Green Bay Packers introduced their new coordinators, Joe Philbin on offense, Mike Pettin on defense. They've got a chance to do something special. And the Brewers, David Stearns, GM, making moves that make you believe they could go and win a World Series by acquiring Christian Yelich and signing Lorenzo Cain. It's a good time to be a sports fan of Wisconsin, unless you're a Wisconsin Badger basketball fan. Then that's a different story, but that's a different story for a different day. Coming up on Toss, we have to run the toss sweep, and we have to talk about Super Bowl LII, Fly Eagles Fly. And then we got to get back to the NBA and what in the hell is going on with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'll try to make it make sense. All that more on a toss sweep coming up next. TossNationMedia.com is your home for the Toss brand of sports. So you get the Trishan on Sports Show, what you're listening to right now. You get Square the Logic, the blog. You get Quick Toss, the videos, and a lot more. That's TossNationMedia.com. TossNationMedia.com. Welcome back to Toss, everyone. It's your friendly neighborhood T-Squared, Tristan Thomas. Thanks for coming on back. And it's time for us to run the Toss sweep. Super Bowl LII, or 52 for those of you who don't know Roman numerals, happened this past Sunday, and the Eagles won. The Eagles won their first football championship since 1960 against the Green Bay Packers. Let's keep it real. Still kind of bitter about that one. Okay, I'm not really bitter. I wasn't even around for that. But anyway, their first football championship since 1960. Their first ever Super Bowl championship. Amazing. Amazing. First off, you made most of America and most of the world quite possibly happy that the Patriots are no longer champions and will not be back-to-back champions, and Brady would not get his sixth ring, and Belichick would not get his gazillionth ring of being a head coach and all that. You knocked them off that perch to where most football fans won't have to really truthfully hear about them in that way because they're overblown. They're very good. They're a machine, but they're a machine that got beat. I'm just happy. I'm happy for Nick Foles. That's a guy I'm happy for. You're talking about a guy who damn near quit because he lost his passion for the game. Refound that passion. Took that opportunity to be a backup in Philadelphia with no guarantee of playing because of their stud quarterback, Carson Wentz. Wentz goes down with injury versus the Rams in the regular season. Foles comes in. Looked a little bit shaky in that relief appearance. Looked a little bit shaky in their game the following week. But then he turned it on, and he just shredded teams all postseason long, including the Super Bowl. This is a guy who had 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. It takes a certain amount of talent and skill to be able to do that. Which is why I said, hey, Eagles will be fine with Nick Foles at quarterback. They could still go and win the Super Bowl with him at quarterback. Look at what he's been able to do. And I had plenty of people in my DMs who were real quiet come Super Bowl Sunday at the end of that game. It was chirping. Crickets. Heard nothing. Because the Eagles were fine with Nick Foles at quarterback. But let that be a lesson to the kids out there. Never give up. Don't ever give up. Just when you're about to quit, that's when something great is about to happen. So that's why you have to keep pushing forward. And Nick Foles' story is a great lesson. Two other guys that I'm happy for on that Eagles squad, Malcolm Jenkins and Chris Long. Malcolm Jenkins doing all these things in the community, also very outspoken about racial inequality and racial injustice. Chris Long, standing right there with him, pretty much played free all season, donated all of his game checks to various causes related to all this. I'm happy for those guys because it showed that you could be socially conscious on a stage like this, and it will not impede or affect your team's ability to win a championship, regardless of what anybody out there will try and tell you. So I'm happy for those dudes. I'm happy for that team. Philadelphia went and ripped up their damn town, which was stupid. I understand you're being happy. You know, you just saw something that you never thought you would see in your entire life. Kevin Hart was on NFL Network all drunk. He was trying to get on stage with the Lombardi Trophy. This big dude was like, nope, you ain't doing it. So there was a lot of stupidity from folks from Philly going on that Sunday. You kind of have to excuse it just a little bit because of that sheer joy. Let's get to the NBA here on a Tall Sweep. And let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Let's talk about them. They're a hot damn mess. I could say some other choice words, but, you know, we try to keep it PG on this show. But they're a hot damn mess. Absolutely hot damn mess. How can you go from being the favorites in the Eastern Conference, having made the NBA Finals 3 straight seasons, to being this fractured, fragile, confusing, finger-pointing, bitching, crying, kvetching shell of yourself? LeBron James is out there doing LeBron James things. He's going to go out there and get his 26 points. He's going to go out there and get you 8 boards and 8 assists. He's going to go out there and get you good defense. He's doing his thing. Kevin Love was doing his thing before he went down with injury. But outside of those two, nobody's really been that good. Tristan Thompson hasn't quite been the defender that he's been. He hasn't quite been the rebounder that he's been. But then again, they relegated him to the bench. He's trying to learn how to be a reserve in the NBA when he's never been a reserve in the NBA. You got Derrick Rose, who leaves the team for weeks on end. He just gets back. He's not really giving you much. Dwayne Wade, look, he's 36 years old. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a 3-time champion. He's had his moments, but you're not going to get that vintage flash Dwayne Wade. So he's giving just about what I thought he would give. J.R. Smith is not playing well. Iman Shumpert is not playing well. Isaiah Thomas finally coming back off of that hip injury. He ain't playing well. And they're not playing a lick of damn defense. They played the Magic last night, and they got beat. I believe it was 116-88 was the final score. Here's the kicker. The Cavs had an 18-point lead at that point in time in that game. In the second half, they were outscored 65-31. Got beat. Not a lick of defense. This team gave up 148 points in a 4-quarter regulation game. Not overtime, not double overtime, not triple overtime. 4-quarter regular season, regular game. 148 points given up by this Cavs defense. This team is not going to win a damn thing until they learn how to defend. Until those guys who have played well over the last 3 seasons when they made the NBA Finals start playing well again. And honestly, I just don't foresee it. This is not a switch you can flip on. I remember speaking to you guys last season on Home Court Sports, which you can listen to Wednesday nights, 7 to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time on Blog Talk Radio. I'm chopping it up with Professor P and Lamont, and I'm saying, look, man, these guys are struggling, but I think they can flip that switch come playoff time and make the finals. And what happened? They flipped that switch, made it to the NBA Finals. They got wrecked in the NBA Finals with the Kevin Durant-led Warriors team, but they made it to the NBA Finals. They flipped that switch. They were better offensively. They were better defensively. None of that crap is happening this year. This isn't something that you can flip a switch on. And now everybody's finger pointing. First, everybody's blaming Kevin Love for all the problems. Well, Kevin Love goes down. Now everybody's blaming Isaiah Thomas, and Isaiah Thomas is blaming everybody else. Hey, when we go through adversity, we go our separate ways. That's what Isaiah Thomas said. This team is probably the most dysfunctional team in all of the NBA. It may very well be the most dysfunctional team in all of the NBA. And it's perplexing because you have the world's best player on that team, one of the all-time greats, and LeBron James on that team, and you're this dysfunctional, which to me says that there's something else wrong here. There's something else wrong here. There's got to be some sort of fractured relationship between management and LeBron James. And I mean, something deeper is going on here. These guys are getting blown out like we never seen a LeBron James-led team get blown out before. These guys are playing. Can we really even say they're playing defense? I don't think they're playing the lick of defense. You can't give up 148 points in 4 quarters. Not an overtime game, not a double overtime game, not a triple overtime game. No, this is a regulation 4-quarter game in the regular season. This is not an all-star game. This is a regular season game. 4 quarters. They gave up 148 points. You can't do that and expect to go through the Eastern Conference, no matter how much talent has been purged from it, and expect to come out of that conference as the champion to face who we all think is going to be the Warriors in the NBA Finals. It's not happening. At this point, right now, as we speak, here on Toss, the Cavs will be lucky to get out of the first round. And right now, you got people even doubting if they'll even make the playoffs. I, on the other hand, think they'll make it. It's the Eastern Conference. But I don't think they'll make it anywhere far in the Eastern Conference come playoff time. It's just perplexing to look at that mess and just really trying to pin your finger on what's going on and what's happening and why it's going this wrong. But I can't. I looked at this thing frontwards, backwards, side to side. I can't come up with a reason why this is not working. I've given a lot of thoughts, but I think there's just something deeper. I think it's just a fractured team, and it's fractured so deeply that it may not be able to be repaired. Some feel that, hey, if they make a major trade, they'll be able to get back into it. Maybe, maybe not. But I will say this, to this point, out of any team that's out there, even teams that are under 500 that you thought would be over 500, they're not the disappointment. The Cleveland Cavaliers are the disappointment for me currently in the NBA. And it's a damn shame. This is Toss. All right, y'all, it's time for me to get on up out of here. This was Toss episode 33. I told y'all we'd be back and better than ever. Hey, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/T-On Sports Show. That's T-O-N Sports Show. You also can listen to this program on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Spotify. Look, we're everywhere. Find us, Toss Tristan on Sports Show. We got you covered. And you can listen to myself, Professor P. Lamont, on the Home Court Sports Show Wednesday nights from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time only on Blog Talk Radio. But as I said before, it's time for me to get on up out of here. This is T-Squared Tristan Thomas reminding all of you that dreams don't catch themselves. Get up, get out, and get after it. Until next week, so long from Toss.